The call came on a Tuesday afternoon, pulling me away from the intricate urban planning diagrams spread across my desk. My world is usually measured in zoning laws, historical preservation codes, and the careful choreography of city spaces. It's a world built on structure and logic, qualities I value deeply. I needed that structure, had built my life around it piece by painstaking piece, especially after growing up witnessing chaos masquerading as ambition. A number I didn't recognize flashed on my screen. I almost sent it to voicemail, but decided to answer. A crisp, professional voice introduced herself as calling from Summit Financial Group. My brow furrowed. I'd never done business with them. "Miss Luna Richards?" she asked. Speaking, I replied, my mind still half on street grids and green spaces. "Miss Richards, I'm calling about the delinquent payments on the loan associated with the property at 14B Maplewood Lane." My heart did a strange, cold flip-flop. 14B Maplewood Lane. My townhome. The historic row house I'd poured years of savings and sweat equity into restoring. It was my anchor, the physical manifestation of my independence. I think there's a mistake," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "That property is fully paid for. I don't have a mortgage or any loans with Summit Financial." The caller was polite but firm. "According to our records, a loan was originated approximately 4 months ago, secured against that address. Our system shows multiple missed payments, totaling." She paused, figures clicking, $12,750. "We've sent several notices to the property address. Notices I'd never received." My mind raced. 12,000? Secured against my townhome? "That's impossible," I insisted. "Are you absolutely sure about the name and address? There has to be a mix-up." "The loan documents list Luna Richards as a co-borrower," she stated. "And we have supporting documentation, including property deeds and signed loan agreements." She mentioned another name listed as co-borrower. "Thomas Richards and Grace Richards?" My breath caught. Thomas and Grace. My parents. The line went quiet for a beat as I processed the gut punch. My parents. On a loan secured against my home. This wasn't a mix-up. This was something far, far worse. I pushed the panic down. I had to be smart. "Okay," I said, my voice regaining its professional edge. "This is concerning. Can you tell me the exact date the loan was originated? The full loan amount? And can you describe the documents you have on file, particularly regarding signatures and notarization?" She provided the date, about 4 months ago, lining up suspiciously with a time my parents had been particularly vague about their finances. The loan amount was staggering, $480,000. She confirmed my name, my parents' names, and mentioned signatures and a notary stamp. "All right," I said, scribbling down her email address as she provided it. "Send me copies of everything. The loan application, the signed agreement, the property appraisal, the deed of trust, the notary information. Everything you have associated with this loan. I need to see it immediately." As soon as I hung up, my hands were shaking, not from fear, but from a rising wave of cold fury. $480,000. My parents. Using my townhome. I immediately called Riley. Riley's not just my best friend from college. She's a sharp-as-a-tack financial attorney. "Riley," I said the moment she answered, my voice tight. "Check your email. I'm forwarding you something from Summit Financial Group. Tell me those documents aren't real." While Riley worked her magic accessing the files, I pulled up my own digital property records. The deed for 14B Maplewood Lane was still solely in my name. No visible mortgage listed on my usual banking interface. But the bank caller had been specific about a lien secured against the property. Something was deeply wrong and professionally hidden. The documents from Summit Financial arrived in my inbox as crisp PDFs. My name, address, property description. Below that, my parents' names, Grace and Thomas Richards. And there it was. A signature under my name on the loan agreement. It was good. Too good. An impressive forgery. The notary stamp was clear, listing a name I didn't recognize. Riley called back within the hour. "Luna," her voice was serious. "These look legit. The forgery is professional. The lien is properly filed. How in the world did this happen?" "My parents," I said, the words tasting like ash. It has to be them. But a forgery? How? That's what we need to figure out, Riley said. Who notarized this? Was there a closing agent? We need to trace the process. But Luna, technically, right now, Summit Financial Group does hold a valid-looking lien against your property, and the loan is in default. My stomach twisted. My sanctuary. My independence. At risk. My phone buzzed. A text message from my mother, Grace. Sweetheart, your father and I are having a little dinner party this weekend. Important family matters to discuss. Can you make it? Saturday, 7 p.m. Another text followed moments later. Oh, and darling, do you still have that old box of Grandma Eleanor's papers? The property deeds and things? Your father thinks we might need them for some updates. My blood ran cold. Grandma Eleanor. The townhome was initially purchased with a small inheritance she'd left me specifically for a down payment, combined with every spare penny I'd earned for years. My parents had always been weirdly interested in those papers. And now this. Important family matters? Updates? It was sickeningly obvious. Riley, I said, my voice hard now. My parents just invited me to dinner. Important family matters. And they're asking about my old property documents. Riley was quiet for a moment. Okay, this is it. They know the bank is calling, or they're planning their next move. Do not let on that you know about the loan or the forgery. Go to the dinner. Act normal. Listen. See what they say, what they want. We need to know the full scope of their plan before we make our move. It felt like walking into the lion's den, blindfolded. But Riley was right. I needed more information. I needed to know just how deep this betrayal went. I agreed. The rest of the week felt like a blur of controlled panic and strategic planning. Riley started discreet inquiries into Summit Financial Group and the notary listed on the documents. I spent my evenings not on city plans, but securing my townhome. I changed every lock. I installed a robust security camera system, covering all entry points. I even briefed a trusted neighbor, a kindly retired police officer named Mr. Davison, to keep an eye out for anyone unusual near my property. This wasn't just about money anymore. It was about protecting my physical space, my sanctuary, from people I should have been able to trust implicitly. Saturday evening arrived like a looming storm. I dressed carefully, choosing something that felt composed and strong, hiding the turmoil churning beneath. As I drove to my parents' affluent suburban home, I noticed the new luxury SUV parked in their driveway. Funny how they could afford that, yet apparently needed to mortgage their daughter's home behind her back. My mother opened the door, all air kisses and forced smiles. Darling, you're here. You look a little tired. Still working too hard, I suppose. I forced a smile back. You know me, Mom. Always something to build. The house smelled of her elaborate cooking, a signature pot roast, something she always made when she wanted to project an image of comforting family normalcy. Through the doorway, I could see my brother Daniel, already seated at the dining table, looking uncomfortable, picking at his napkin. My father Thomas emerged from his study, that familiar, charming smile plastered on his face, the kind that could sell ice to an Eskimo or, apparently, secure a fraudulent loan. Luna, there's our successful girl, he boomed, opening his arms for a hug. He held me slightly too tight. Did you bring those old papers? Eleanor's documents. My hand instinctively went to my purse. Inside, instead of old deeds, were the copies of the forged loan documents. The papers he wanted so badly, I thought, to complete their plan to steal my home. Oh, Dad, I said, keeping my voice light and airy, pulling away from his hug. I forgot those particular ones. What exactly did you need them for? An insurance update, Mom said. His smile flickered for a fraction of a second. Yes, just routine things, he said smoothly, his hand dropping from my arm. You know how it is with properties. We moved to the dining room. Grace fussed over the table setting, an elaborate spread of food masking the tension in the air. Daniel offered me a small, tight smile as I took my seat. So, I began trying to set the tone, make them react to my pace. Mom mentioned important family matters? Everything okay? Grace and Thomas exchanged a look. Daniel stared intently at his water glass. My father cleared his throat, adopting a serious, almost paternal tone that always set my teeth on edge. Well, sweetheart, your mother and we've had some significant financial setbacks recently. Here it comes, I thought, picking up my fork but not taking a bite. Oh, I'm sorry to hear that. What happened? My mother chimed in, her voice laced with a dramatic sigh. The market has been simply dreadful. Our investments, well, they haven't performed as we'd hoped. Investments. That was their euphemism for gambling losses and failed, poorly planned business ventures over the years. Investments? I asked, my voice carefully neutral. Or were you talking about the money lost on the downtown development idea? Or perhaps the casino trips you kept mentioning? A beat of silence. The clink of silverware felt deafening. My father's smile tightened, but he held his composure. Now, Luna, that's not fair. We've faced challenging circumstances. We've always managed our affairs. Until now, I prompted, tilting my head slightly. Grace cut in, her voice sharp with desperation. The thing is, Luna, we need your help. Desperately. You've done so well for yourself. You've built such a successful life. She gestured around, encompassing the house, their lifestyle. We sacrificed everything to give you opportunities. Now, it's only right that you support us. I set my fork down. My appetite was gone. Support you? How exactly? My father leaned forward, his eyes gleaming with what he clearly thought was a brilliant solution. The townhome, Luna. Your place on Maplewood Lane. If we sell it now, the market is good. We can clear our debts. It's the perfect solution. It will save us. The sheer, breathtaking entitlement of it. They had already used it to secure debt they couldn't pay, and now they expected me to liquidate my most valuable asset, the symbol of everything I'd worked for, to fix their mess. Perfect for whom? I asked, my voice dangerously quiet. That house is in my name. I paid for it. I restored it. We're your parents. My mother snapped, her composure breaking. Everything you have is because of us. We gave you life. We gave you opportunities. Opportunities. I laughed, a short, bitter sound. Daniel finally looked up, his eyes wide. Like the college fund Grandma Eleanor set up for me, the one that mysteriously disappeared just before I started freshman year? The one you said the bank lost? Or the credit cards you took out in my name when I was 18, maxing them out and ruining my credit before I even had a chance to build it? Daniel's head snapped between me and our parents. Credit cards? What is she talking about? Quiet, Daniel, my father growled, his charming facade completely gone, replaced by something cold and hard. Oh, he didn't know? I turned to my brother. Yeah, Daniel. When I tried to get my first apartment lease in college, I was denied. My credit score was in the tank because they opened cards using my identity and defaulted. Took me years to fix it. Years of working 3 jobs while going to school, living in sketchy places because I couldn't pass a credit check. My mother's face was pale. That was different. We paid those off, eventually. Eventually. I stood up, my chair scraping harshly against the floor. And now you're trying to steal my home. My fully paid-for home, that you secretly used as collateral for your gambling debts. My father's eyes narrowed. Who have you been talking to? Summit Financial Group called me on Tuesday, I stated simply. Interesting conversation. I looked at Daniel. Did you know about any of this, Daniel? About the debt? About the plan to sell my townhome? Daniel shook his head, looking distressed. No, Luna, I knew they were having money trouble, really bad trouble, but this? No. They forged my signature, Daniel, I said, my voice breaking slightly despite myself. On a $500,000 loan. I pulled out my phone and placed it on the table, sliding it towards my father. The screen showed the PDF of the loan document, the forgery of my signature clear under the harsh dining room light. Do you recognize this, Dad? Or this? I zoomed in on the notary stamp. Maybe you can explain how my signature appeared on this document without me ever seeing it, let alone signing it. My mother gasped, covering her mouth. My father stared at the phone, his face turning ashen. The charm, the bluster, it all drained away. He looked cornered. You leave Jordan out of this, he muttered, his voice low and dangerous. Jordan. That was the name Daniel had mentioned as someone associated with one of my father's failed ventures. The business consultant he'd fallen in with. So he was involved. Jordan, I said, raising an eyebrow. Why would I leave Jordan out of this? Is he as nervous about bank fraud and forgery charges as you should be? My mother sprang up so fast her wine glass tipped, spilling a dark red stain across the pristine white tablecloth. How dare you? How dare you threaten us after everything? We are your parents. Stop saying that. I slammed my hand flat on the table, making the silverware jump and clatter. You didn't sacrifice. You took. You always took. You took Grandma's money. You took my good name with those credit cards. You took peace of mind, and now you've gone too far. You tried to take my home. I picked up my phone again. You have 48 hours, I said, my voice shaking slightly with the force of my emotion but utterly resolute. 48 hours to contact Summit Financial, confess to the fraudulent loan, and start making this right. You need to figure out how to fix this yourselves, the same way you got into it. If you don't, I'd go to the police with all of this. And to the state bar about Jordan's involvement. My father's voice was barely a whisper. You wouldn't. We're family. Family doesn't do this to family, I countered, the phrase I'd heard countless times thrown back at them, stripped of all meaning. Try me. I grabbed my purse and walked towards the door. Daniel stood by the table, looking stunned, watching me go. Oh, and Dad? I paused at the threshold and turned back, a cold, hard smile on my face. About the townhome? About needing those papers? I changed all the locks this morning. Funny how things work out. I walked out, leaving them in the silent, tension-filled dining room, the wine stains spreading like a dark stain on their perfect facade. As I got into my car, my hands were still trembling, but my mind was clear. The game had changed. It was no longer about me reacting to their moves. Now I would be making mine. The drive back to my townhome felt like a journey towards freedom, even though the fight had just begun. My phone was already buzzing with frantic messages from my parents, which I ignored. I called Riley. How did it go? She asked, her voice tight with anticipation. It went exactly as it needed to, I said, pulling into my secured driveway. They know I know. They demanded I sell the townhome to cover their debt. And they let the name Jordan slip. He's involved. Jordan, Riley mused. I've heard that name in some less than reputable circles. A loan broker with a flexible approach to paperwork. He helped them forge the documents, Riley. Get the loan through. My father admitted it implicitly. Okay, Riley said, her tone shifting into full legal strategy mode. This changes things. Now that they know you're onto them, they might try anything. We need to move fast but carefully. The legal challenge to the lien is filed. That buys us some time. But we need more leverage. We need to connect Jordan directly to the forgery and prove your parents masterminded it. And we need to prepare for them fighting back dirty. Daniel was there, I added. I think he's on my side. I'm going to show him everything. Good, Riley said. An inside source, even a reluctant one, could be invaluable. But trust your gut. They are masters of manipulation. I hung up and sat in my car for a moment, looking at my townhome bathed in the soft glow of the streetlights. It felt more precious, more mine than ever before. The next day, I met Daniel for coffee at a neutral spot. He looked haggard, like he hadn't slept. Luna, I don't understand. How could they? They did, Daniel, I said gently. I opened my laptop and showed him the scanned loan documents with the forged signature. Then, I showed him the old credit reports from years ago. The defaulted cards opened when I was a teenager. Finally, I showed him the bank statements from around the time Grandma Eleanor passed, tracing how the funds meant for my education had been systematically withdrawn and moved into accounts that then seemed to fund some of my father's failed schemes. Daniel stared at the screen, his face getting paler with each document. But they always said those credit cards were just a small thing, paid back immediately, and Grandma's money, they said it went into a family trust for our future. The trust never materialized, Daniel, I said, showing him an email from a lawyer Grandma had consulted years ago, confirming her intention to set up separate educational trusts for each of us and the fact that she had provided the funds for mine. They lied. They always have. They used us. They probably told you I was selfish. Didn't I help the family enough? Daniel looked up, tears welling in his eyes. They said you were hoarding money, that you didn't understand what it meant to struggle, that the townhome was an unnecessary extravagance when the family was in need. They said if you just helped more, maybe their businesses would have succeeded. Maybe my financial problems wouldn't be so bad. My heart ached for him. They had played us against each other, poisoning our relationship to distract from their own failures and crimes. Daniel, I said softly, they didn't fail because we didn't help enough. They failed because they are reckless and dishonest. And they aren't asking for help now. They're demanding a bailout for a debt they incurred fraudulently, using my property. He wiped his eyes roughly. Jordan. Dad talked about him a lot. Said he was a financial wizard, could get things done. He was always around when Dad was chasing some big, stupid idea. Riley thinks Jordan is the key to how the forgery happened and how it got past the bank's checks, I said. Do you know anything about Jordan? How to contact him? Who he associates with? Daniel hesitated for a moment, then nodded. He wasn't just a consultant. He was more involved. Dad had a separate email account he used just for his special deals, and I might still have access to it. I helped him set it up years ago. This was huge. A direct line into my parents' secret dealings and Jordan's involvement. Daniel, I said, placing my hand on his arm. Are you sure about this? Helping me means going against Mom and Dad. It could get complicated. He looked at the documents spread on the table again, his own face reflected in the screen showing the evidence of their deceit. They stole my future too, Luna. Maybe not a house, but they stole the truth. They stole years of us being a real family. They need to be stopped. And so, the investigation intensified. Riley's team focused on tracing Jordan's professional history and connections, looking for any patterns of similar fraudulent loans or complaints. Daniel, working quietly from his end, managed to access the hidden email account. It was a goldmine. Emails detailing communications with Jordan about paperwork finalization, veiled references to bypassing standard channels, and alarming exchanges between Jordan and my parents discussing using the townhome as collateral and securing signed approval, clearly referencing the forgery. The parents weren't passive either. The legal challenge to the lien infuriated them. The manipulative calls and texts escalated. You're destroying your family. Think about what the neighbors will say. This is just a misunderstanding. We can fix it. Just tell that lawyer of yours to stand down. My father even showed up at my office building, trying to get past security to talk. I had to get a restraining order filed, a painful step that solidified just how broken things were. They also intensified their campaign against me with other family members. My aunt called, sounding confused and concerned. Luna, your mother says you're trying to take their retirement money, that you're being so cruel. It hurt, but Riley had prepared me. I calmly explained the situation, the forgery, the debt, the threat to my home, offering to show her proof. Some believed me. Others remained loyal to the narrative my parents spun. Riley and I met with Audrey, the investigative journalist Riley knew. We showed her the initial documents, the evidence from the secret email account, Jordan's suspected role, and explained the pattern of behavior stretching back years, affecting not just me but also Daniel. Audrey was immediately interested. This wasn't just a family dispute. It was a case of potentially systemic fraud and familial financial abuse. She started her own investigation, discreetly reaching out to sources, confirming details about Summit Financial Group and Jordan's reputation. The pressure mounted. Summit Financial, alerted by Riley's legal challenge and potentially by Audrey's inquiries, began its own internal audit of the loan. Jordan, feeling the heat from questions and investigations, became erratic. Daniel forwarded us emails where Jordan was demanding more money from our parents, threatening to expose them if they didn't pay up to keep him quiet. My parents were clearly unraveling. Their desperate attempts to access funds failed. Credit cards were declined. My mother called me in a rage one afternoon, screaming about her card being declined at a department store. How dare you interfere with our accounts? We're your parents. I just listened, documented the call, and hung up. Riley suspected Summit Financial or other banks were freezing assets based on their internal audits triggered by our actions. The critical turning point came when Jordan, cornered and facing potential prison time from multiple directions. Summit Financial, our legal challenge, likely the authorities getting involved soon, made a desperate move. He contacted Riley, offering a full confession and all his documentation in exchange for a deal, cooperation for a reduced sentence. Riley and I, with Detective Carter from the Financial Crimes Unit now involved in the background, met with Jordan and his lawyer in a sterile conference room. Jordan was a nervous wreck, far from the smooth operator my father had described. He laid it all out: how Grace and Thomas had approached him, desperate for money for gambling debts, how they knew they couldn't get a standard loan, how he facilitated the fraudulent application using my townhome as collateral, knowing it was fully owned, how he either forged the signature himself or hired someone to do it, how he used his contacts or knowledge of loopholes to push the loan through Summit Financial with minimal scrutiny. He handed over copies of emails, text messages, and even a few handwritten notes from my parents outlining their plan. It was damning, irrefutable proof of their calculated deceit. Hearing it all laid bare, seeing the cold, transactional nature of their plan on paper, was sickening. It wasn't just desperation. It was deliberate criminal action against their own child. With Jordan's confession and the evidence from Daniel, Riley officially filed a comprehensive report with the Financial Crimes Unit. Detective Carter confirmed they had more than enough for search warrants and arrests. The end came swiftly. Search warrants were executed at my parents' house. Financial records, computers, and other potential evidence were seized. Grace and Thomas were taken into custody. The news hit their community like a shockwave. Audrey's article ran the next day. It was a powerful piece, detailing the rise of complex financial fraud schemes and familial exploitation. While not explicitly naming my parents in the headline, the details about a prominent local couple involved in gambling debts, using their daughter's meticulously restored historic townhome as collateral via forged documents, and the subsequent investigation, made it clear to anyone in their circles exactly who it was about. Audrey also included details about other families who had come forward with similar stories after her investigation began. My parents weren't unique monsters, but part of a disturbing pattern facilitated by people like Jordan. My phone exploded with calls and texts. Shock, sympathy, questions. Some messages were from relatives expressing shame and anger towards my parents. Daniel and I navigated this together, finding strength in our shared, painful truth. The legal challenge against the Summit Financial loan, backed by Jordan's confession and the criminal investigation, was quickly resolved. The lien on my townhome was removed. My property, my sanctuary, was finally, truly mine again, legally and emotionally secure. Grace and Thomas faced their charges. Jordan cooperated with the prosecution and received a reduced sentence. The consequences for my parents were severe, not just legal, but the complete destruction of their reputation, their social standing, their carefully constructed world built on lies. They lost everything they tried to protect: their house, their assets, their freedom, and any remaining shred of respect. The last time I saw them was from a distance, at a preliminary hearing. They looked small, defeated, stripped of their arrogance and charm. They barely resembled the larger-than-life figures who had loomed over my life, taking and demanding. I walked through my townhome a few days later, running my hand over the cool wood of the staircase I had restored myself. The silence in the house wasn't empty, it was peaceful. It felt like taking a deep breath after holding it for decades. It had been a painful journey, filled with betrayal, anger, and heartbreak. I had lost the illusion of the family I wished I had, but I had gained something invaluable: truth, justice, my home, and my freedom. I stood in my living room, looking out the window at the vibrant neighborhood I was helping to shape. The game they played was over, and I had finally won back my life, brick by painstaking brick. Daniel and I grabbed coffee the following weekend. He was still processing everything, but our bond felt stronger than it ever had. We talked not about the past betrayals, but about the future, about rebuilding, about living honestly. As I walked home, I knew the scars would remain, but they were the scars of a battle fought and won. My townhome stood strong, a testament to resilience. And so did I.